Welcome. We all experience suffering. It's a fundamental thread in the fabric of human existence, an unwelcome visitor that sooner or later knocks on everyone's door. But what if suffering wasn't just a meaningless torment to be avoided at all costs? What if, hidden within its depths, lay a profound opportunity for growth, for a deeper connection with ourselves, and even a path to a life lived with greater meaning despite the pain? Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in modern psychology, believed precisely this. He didn't offer a simple trick to erase suffering, but rather a profound way to understand it, to engage with it, and ultimately to transform its energy. This isn't about a life entirely without suffering, as that might be an illusion, but about discovering a way to navigate it, to reduce its grip and to find meaning even in its presence. Jung once wrote, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." This suggests that much of our avoidable pain comes from resisting the necessary growth-inducing suffering life presents. Today, we embark on a journey into the heart of Jung's teachings, exploring what some might call his secret method, not a quick fix, but a deep transformative approach to the age-old problem of human suffering. We'll delve into the unconscious, confront our shadows, and explore the path of individuation. How have you typically responded to suffering in your own life? Has it been a source of despair, or have you ever sensed a deeper message within it? If this exploration into the human psyche and the wisdom of Carl Jung resonates with you, consider following our channel for more journeys into self-discovery. Let's begin to uncover these profound insights. To understand how we might navigate suffering, we must first explore why, from Carl Jung's perspective, we suffer at all. For Jung's suffering wasn't merely a malfunction or a sign of failure, it was an intrinsic part of the human condition, often carrying a profound, albeit hidden, meaning. He saw it not as something to be simply suppressed or medicated away, but as a potential catalyst for profound psychic development. Jung distinguished between what he termed legitimate suffering, the unavoidable pain that comes with life, such as loss, disappointment, and the confrontation with our own limitations, and neurotic suffering. This neurotic suffering, he proposed, often arises from our attempts to avoid the legitimate kind. As Jung stated, the neurotic is ill not because he has lost his old story, but because he has not yet found a new one. This implies that when we cling to outdated patterns, resist necessary changes, or refuse to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves, we create a different, often more insidious form of suffering. Imagine someone stuck in a job that stifles their soul, yet they stay due to fear of change or societal pressure. The daily drudgery, the anxiety, the feeling of emptiness, this is a form of neurotic suffering. The legitimate suffering might be the discomfort of uncertainty, the effort of retraining, or the potential disapproval of others if they were to pursue a more authentic path. Jung believed that suffering often acts as a messenger from the deeper parts of our psyche, signaling that something is out of balance, that a part of us is being neglected or suppressed. It's a call to attention, an urgent prompting to look within. The hidden meaning, therefore, is often an invitation to growth, to a re-evaluation of our lives, our values, and our conscious attitudes. Jung observed, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. When we try to cut off the parts of ourselves or our experiences that cause pain, we often create more suffering. The question then becomes, what is your current suffering trying to communicate to you? Is there a part of your life where you might be avoiding a necessary, albeit difficult, confrontation or change? Central to Carl Jung's understanding of suffering is his profound exploration of the unconscious mind. He saw the unconscious not merely as a repository of repressed desires, as Freud had emphasized, but as a vast dynamic realm containing not only personal forgotten experiences and undeveloped aspects of the self, but also a collective layer, the collective unconscious, housing universal patterns of human experience, which he called archetypes. For Jung, the unconscious is often the root of our suffering, precisely because what remains unconscious holds power over us. He famously stated, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This highlights how unexamined unconscious contents, unresolved traumas, suppressed emotions, unacknowledged needs or complexes can drive our behaviors, choices, and reactions in ways that lead to pain and dissatisfaction. Think of someone who repeatedly finds themselves in unhealthy relationships. Consciously, they desire a loving partnership, but unconsciously, an unresolved childhood wound or a negative parental imago might be steering them towards partners who replicate old, painful dynamics. This is the unconscious directing life, leading to repeated suffering. However, Jung also saw the unconscious as the primary key to liberation. It's not just a dark cellar of problems, it's also a wellspring of wisdom, creativity, and transformative potential. By engaging with the unconscious through dreams, active imagination, which we'll explore later, or an honest self-reflection, we can bring these hidden influences into the light of consciousness. In doing so, we gain the power to understand them, to integrate them, and to free ourselves from their compulsive hold. Jung wrote in Man and His Symbols that the unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good, not only dark but also light, not only bestial, semi-human, and demonic, but superhuman, spiritual, and in the classical sense of the word, divine. The journey into the unconscious, therefore, while potentially challenging, is a journey towards greater wholeness and a significant reduction in the suffering caused by unseen forces within us. What patterns in your life might be signaling an unconscious influence at play? One of the most crucial and often most challenging aspects of engaging with the unconscious is what Carl Jung termed embracing the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, represents the dark side of our personality, those aspects of ourselves that we repress, deny, or deem unacceptable, either because they conflict with our conscious self-image, our persona, or because they were shamed or rejected by our upbringing or society. Jung described the shadow as that hidden, repressed, for the most part inferior and guilt-laden personality, whose ultimate ramifications reach back into the realm of our animal ancestors. It contains not only our negative traits, like selfishness, aggression, or envy, but also, paradoxically, undeveloped, positive qualities, creativity, and vitality that we might have disowned. Suffering often arises from the tension created by this unacknowledged shadow. When we deny these parts of ourselves, they don't simply disappear. Instead, they tend to be projected onto others. We might vehemently criticize in someone else the very trait we refuse to see in ourselves. This projection creates interpersonal conflict and internal dissonance, a constant draining battle. For example, a person who has repressed their own anger might find themselves constantly irritated by angry people or attracting situations that provoke their unacknowledged rage. Jung emphasized that everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The path to reducing this inner conflict and the suffering it causes lies in the courageous act of withdrawing these projections and consciously integrating the shadow. This doesn't mean acting out our darkest impulses, but rather acknowledging their existence within us, understanding their origins, and finding constructive ways to express or transform their energy. It's about becoming whole, not just good. This process, while difficult, can lead to a profound increase in self-awareness, authenticity, and a significant decrease in the kind of suffering that stems from self-deception and internal warfare. Have you ever noticed yourself having a strong negative reaction to someone, only to later realize that the trait you disliked in them was something you struggled with yourself? Share your experiences in the comments if you feel comfortable. It's a common human experience. The journey of engaging the unconscious and integrating the shadow culminates in what Carl Jung considered the central aim of psychological development: individuation. This is Jung's blueprint for navigating suffering, not as an endpoint, but as a crucial part of the path towards true selfhood. Jung described individuation as the process by which a person becomes a psychological individual, that is, a separate, indivisible unity or whole. It is the lifelong striving to become the unique, authentic individual one is meant to be, distinct from collective norms and expectations, and integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the personality. Suffering in this context often signals a deviation from this path of individuation, or it can be the very friction that propels us along it. When we are not living in alignment with our true selves, perhaps by conforming too much to societal pressures, our persona, or By being dominated by unacknowledged unconscious contents, a kind of existential suffering can arise. This might manifest as a feeling of meaninglessness, a persistent anxiety, or a sense of being unfulfilled. Jung saw these experiences not as mere pathologies, but as calls from the self, his term for the archetype of wholeness and the regulating center of the psyche, urging us towards greater authenticity. The process of individuation inherently involves confronting suffering. It means facing our shadow, wrestling with our complexes, differentiating ourselves from collective identifications, and integrating the often conflicting parts of our nature. For example, an artist who has spent years in a conventional career that provides security but no creative fulfillment might experience deep suffering. This suffering could be the catalyst for them to begin the difficult individuation journey of acknowledging their artistic soul, perhaps part of their inferior function, or shadow if devalued earlier, and finding ways to express it, even if it means facing insecurity or disapproval. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This journey is rarely easy. It demands courage, honesty, and a willingness to endure the discomfort of growth. However, by embracing this path, suffering is no longer seen as a meaningless affliction, but as an integral, albeit painful, part of becoming whole. It transforms from a source of despair into a guiding force. What aspects of your life feel most authentically you, and which feel more like a concession to external expectations? The tension between these can often highlight where the work of individuation lies. Beyond understanding the roots of suffering, Carl Jung also provided practical techniques for engaging with it directly, and one of the most powerful is active imagination. This isn't passive, daydreaming, or mere fantasy. Jung developed active imagination as a conscious method for dialoguing with the contents of the unconscious, especially those parts that manifest as emotional pain, inner conflict, or even physical discomfort when psychically linked. He saw it as a way to give a voice to the suffering, to the figures and energies within us that are clamoring for attention. Jung believed that the unconscious can be addressed by means of active imagination. One gives a fantasy an objective character by participating in it, by asking questions of the figures appearing in it, and by receiving their answers. The process typically involves focusing on a particular mood, a dream image, a spontaneous fantasy, or even a physical sensation of pain. Then, with conscious intent, one allows this initial impression to unfold, to take on a life of its own, perhaps as a figure, a landscape, or a symbolic scenario. The key, as Jung emphasized, is then to actively participate in this inner drama, to speak to the figures that emerge, to ask them questions about their presence, their needs, their message, and to listen attentively to their responses, however surprising they may be. For instance, someone experiencing a persistent ache of loneliness might, through active imagination, encounter a figure of an abandoned child within. Dialoguing with this child figure could reveal unmet needs for connection or unhealed wounds from the past that are fueling the current suffering. The goal isn't necessarily to banish the pain immediately, but to understand its meaning and its source. Jung found that by engaging these inner figures respectfully, by treating them as relatively autonomous parts of the psyche, their destructive or painful charge could be lessened, and their energy often transformed into something more creative or life-affirming. It's a method of making the unconscious contents conscious in a dynamic, experiential way, thereby facilitating their integration. Have you ever felt like a part of you was trying to tell you something through a persistent feeling or an image that kept recurring? Active imagination offers a way to have that conversation. When we explore our personal suffering, Carl Jung's concept of archetypes offers a powerful lens for understanding that our individual pains often resonate with universal, timeless human experiences. Archetypes, as Jung described them, are primordial images and patterns of behavior inherited from our ancestral past, residing in the collective unconscious. They are, as he put it, forms or images of a collective nature which occur practically all over the earth as constituents of myths and at the same time as individual products of unconscious origin. Examples include the hero, the mother, the child, the wise old man, the trickster, and of course the shadow and the self. Understanding archetypes helps us see that our struggles are not always just ours in a purely personal sense, but are often enactments of these fundamental human dramas. Suffering can arise when we are unconsciously possessed by an archetype, or when an archetypal energy is blocked or distorted. For instance, someone caught in a cycle of self-sacrifice to the point of burnout might be overly identified with the sacrificial aspect of the mother archetype, neglecting their own needs. Or an individual who constantly seeks external validation and glory, only to face repeated disappointment, might be driven by an unfulfilled hero archetype, failing to recognize the inner journey the hero must also undertake. Recognizing the archetypal patterns behind our suffering can depersonalize it to some extent, making it feel less like a personal failing and more like a shared human challenge. It can also provide a map for navigating the experience. If we realize our suffering has the hallmarks of a particular mythic journey, a descent into the underworld, a battle with a dragon, our inner demons, or a quest for a lost treasure, our true self, it can give us a sense of direction and meaning. Jung believed that myths and fairy tales are, in essence, the collective dreams of humanity, offering symbolic representations of these archetypal processes. By understanding the archetypal dimension of our pain, we can connect our personal story to these larger, universal narratives which can itself be a source of solace and strength. Consider the recurring themes or roles you find yourself playing out in your life, especially during times of difficulty. Do they echo any well-known myths or archetypal figures? This reflection can open up new perspectives on your suffering. Carl Jung was deeply fascinated by the ancient art of alchemy, seeing in its obscure symbolism a powerful metaphor for the psychological process of transformation, particularly the transformation of suffering. For Jung, alchemy wasn't just about turning lead into gold in a literal sense. It was a symbolic representation of the individuation process, the journey of turning the base matter of our raw, unrefined psyche, including our pain and shadow aspects, into the gold of the integrated whole self. He saw suffering as the prima materia, the chaotic, initial, a state from which the alchemical work begins. As Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, the alchemical opus deals in the main not just with chemical experiments as such, but with something resembling psychic processes expressed in pseudo-chemical language. The alchemical stages, such as the nigredo, blackening, dissolution, confrontation with the shadow, albedo, whitening, purification, and rubedo, reddening, integration, new life, provided Jung with a framework for understanding how suffering can be worked with and ultimately transmuted. The initial encounter with suffering, the nigredo, is often a period of darkness, despair, and a feeling of being stuck. This is where we confront our raw pain, our unacknowledged shadow material, and the parts of ourselves that have been broken or neglected. It's a painful but necessary stage. Through conscious engagement, through techniques like active imagination, dream work, and honest self-reflection, the alchemical operations like solutio, dissolving old structures, and coagulatio, bringing together new insights, this raw suffering can be gradually refined. The goal is not to eliminate the suffering, but to extract its hidden meaning, its gold. For example, a period of intense grief, nigredo, might, through deep inner work, lead to a profound appreciation for life and a reordering of priorities, albedo, eventually culminating in a newfound sense of purpose or a deeper capacity for compassion, rubedo. Jung believed that in all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. The alchemical perspective on suffering invites us to hold the tension of our pain, to endure its heat, and to trust that within this transformative vessel, something of immense value can be forged. It's about finding meaning and purpose not in spite of the pain but through it. If this video is helping you see suffering in a new light, don't forget to follow the channel. Your support helps us continue creating this kind of content, a cornerstone of Carl Jung's approach to alleviating suffering lies in the concept of transcending dualities by integrating opposites. The human psyche, as Jung observed, is structured around pairs of opposites, conscious and unconscious, ego and shadow, masculine, animus, and feminine, anima, thinking and feeling, introversion and extroversion, good and evil, light and dark. Much of our suffering, he argued, stems from an over-identification with one pole of a duality and the repression or rejection of its counterpart. This creates an imbalance, a tension that manifests as inner conflict and psychological distress. Jung stated, "The brighter the light, the darker the shadow." This illustrates how emphasizing one extreme inevitably energizes its opposite in the unconscious. For example, someone who rigidly adheres to a persona of being always strong and in control might suffer from anxiety or unexplained physical symptoms, which could be the voice of their repressed vulnerability, the opposite pole seeking expression. Similarly, a highly rational individual who devalues their emotions might find themselves in relationships that are emotionally chaotic as their unlived feeling life erupts externally. Jung's secret to easing this kind of suffering is not to eliminate one side of the polarity, but to consciously hold the tension between the opposites until a third way, a synthesis, emerges. This is what he called the transcendent function. It's a process whereby, acknowledging and valuing both sides of a psychic conflict, a new, more integrated perspective can arise, one that transcends the original opposition. Jung wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This applies equally to the meeting of opposing forces within our own psyche. Consider the tension between the desire for freedom and the need for security. Clinging exclusively to one can lead to suffering, either the anxiety of instability or the suffocation of confinement. Jung's approach would involve acknowledging both needs, exploring their roots and values, and seeking a way to live that honors both, perhaps finding security in inner resources rather than external circumstances, or expressing freedom within committed structures. This integration of opposites leads to greater psychological flexibility, resilience, and a profound sense of wholeness, which, in turn, significantly reduces neurotic suffering. It's about moving beyond an either-or mentality to an and-both perspective, embracing the richness and complexity of our full human nature. What opposing forces do you notice at play within yourself, and how might acknowledging both sides lead to a more integrated way of being? So we've journeyed through some of Carl Jung's most profound insights into the nature of suffering and the path towards alleviating its grip and finding deeper meaning. From understanding suffering as a messenger to exploring the unconscious depths, embracing our shadow, embarking on the path of individuation, dialoguing with pain through active imagination, recognizing archetypal patterns, undertaking the alchemy of transformation, and integrating life's inherent opposites, Jung's perspective offers not a simple escape from suffering, but a way to engage with it that fosters profound growth and wholeness. He didn't promise a life without any pain, for as he acknowledged, even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. Instead, Jung's work illuminates a path to reducing neurotic suffering, the suffering born of avoidance and inner conflict, and to finding meaning even in legitimate, unavoidable pain. The secret method, if there is one, lies in the courage to turn inward, to face what is difficult within us, and to consciously participate in our own psychological development. It's an ongoing process, a lifelong journey of becoming more fully ourselves. As Jung himself suggested, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This choice involves embracing the totality of our experience, the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow. What is one insight from Jung's teachings on suffering that particularly resonates with you today? And what small step might you take to begin engaging with your own experiences in this more conscious, transformative way? If you found this exploration valuable and wish to continue delving into the mysteries of the psyche and the path of self-knowledge, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this video with others who might benefit. Your engagement helps us immensely. Thank you for joining us on this journey.